Hi.
Hi! I'm super duper excited for this session. Are you?
Yeah, I am.
Yeah, so today we actually want to start on the first rule of deep work. We've been talking about how deep work is rare, meaningful, valuable, but now it's time to actually get into the meat of how to do this work. We've been talking about the
Yeah.
what. Now it's time to talk about the how. And honestly, when it comes to concentrating, when it comes to putting all your attention on the work and the skill that you're trying to master, it's not as simple as most of us think it is. It's actually much harder. And so the book proposes some approaches that other people have used to get their deep work juices flowing.
I found myself in a dream state after reading that introduction. So it talked about a eudaimonia machine, if you recall,
Hmm.
that a conversation between I guess the writer of the book and a
Yes.
stated person.
And the
And
person who designed that machine, yeah.
yeah, and I found it interesting, and I was like, oh, you have a room that you can just lock yourself away studying. I'm like, oh, that sounds so dreamy. Because I don't have that right now. I don't even have the luxury, unfortunately. And then there's the relaxation room where I'm like, well, I find myself a lot in that room because my distraction level is like really high, battling a number of things, right? And then, just shuttling back and forth within that particular construct, a room designed or a space designed especially for that. But I also like the fact that the writer went ahead to point out that okay, you guys wake up from your dream. It's not a realistic approach for everybody because not all of us are gonna get that right. The
Not all
Udemona
of us are
machine.
going
I'm
to be
like,
able to build all those secluded houses
I
in the
mean,
forest somewhere.
right? Well, it will be a nice to have. Sincerely,
Be
I wish I could
nice.
do that
Yeah.
for myself, but unfortunately, I have would you say position myself or my life has been positioned in such a way that that is not a luxury for me at the moment. So that's
Yeah.
not a luxury I can afford in the
Can
moment
afford it.
anyway.
Yeah.
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 So
I love the realism there, but it also says that even though we don't, some of us don't, most of us anyway, don't have these resources, there are still ways that we can go about ensuring that we're able to concentrate on whatever it is we're trying to master or to learn,
yeah.
be it for your career, for your personal life, anything that you want to do. I just want to read something that I penned down. I pen a lot of stuff down as usual, but I just want to read something that I penned down here. And it says that for people who are just starting to practice deep work, we are
Mm-hmm.
only able to resist the urges of distraction about half the time. And this is very true. I remember when I initially, decided that I needed to change careers and whatnot. And I needed to just really move away from social media and all other forms of distraction. I found that there was that part of me that would always remember I want to concentrate on my learning. But there was also
Yeah.
that other part of me, that habit part of me that was like, girl, you are bored. Just, pick up your phone, set through your emails, set through your Instagram, look at what's going on with your friends and things like that. And I realized that, this particular statement that was made, by the author was actually true, even for me, who had decided that, I want to concentrate on what I'm learning. And it's really true for all of us, especially those of us who are just starting to fall into the concept of, deep work and trying to ensure that we really concentrate on whatever it is we are doing. And so this brings us to the realization that practicing deep work it goes beyond you just deciding that you want to concentrate on your learning. is stronger than that. Like you need something, you need a force that is stronger than that, or you need something, a strategy, a you need something that helps to
Well,
keep you in check, that helps to, kind of remove those distractions from your immediate space in such a way that your distractions become out of sight, out of mind, right?
I might add, or should I say, restructure, because you putting it that way sounds sincerely almost impossible for a number of people, myself included. But one thing I would say
Okay.
um, is deep work is one. First of all, you need to make that decision because that's where everything starts, right? It's put then you work on decide on what strategy you want to use to achieve it, because it's like building a muscle, right? And with everything that comes that is habitual, you have to form the habit. You don't just suddenly wake up and be like, yay, I can,
Very
I
true.
can say, we use the example of bodybuilding. Or no, you don't even necessarily have to bodybuild. You just want that flat tummy, right? Or summer body or whatnot. You ain't gonna sleep, wake up the next morning and say, I'm going to have a summer body, and then you wake up the next day and that's it. No, you decide, okay, I want to lose X amount of weight and I want to have a trim tummy by X amount of time, right? So you've set a goal for yourself, or you
Right. And then you put
aspire for this
strategies
thing.
in place.
Exactly. So
Exactly.
what are you gonna do? Are you going to cut your meals down? Portion size. What are you gonna do? How many exercises are you gonna fit into your routine? How many times a day are you gonna do that? And so on and so forth to reach that goal. And I would use this excerpt from the book that actually emphasizes this point that the author did point out. It says you have a finite amount of willpower that becomes depleted as you use it. So this is just essentially okay. It then went on, actually then went on to
Hmm.
actually talk about or compare it to muscle building. So it says your will is not a manifestation of your character. So guys, don't be dismayed. It is instead like a muscle that tires. So in the process of actually trying
But
to
sorry
develop
to
that,
cut you there. You've jumped a
yeah,
very important section of that statement. It says your will,
yeah,
in other words, is not
there's a
a
reason why there's a
manifestation
reason.
of your character that
Mm-hmm.
you can deploy without limit.
Okay.
Right? Which is why I said what I said the other time when I said that sometimes we can decide that I want to concentrate, I want to learn this skill in X amount of time. You can actually decide that. But doing the work actually goes beyond, like, it's not enough for you to just decide that, because your decision is limitless. Like your decision just makes it feel like you can, dive into deep work anytime, you can concentrate and, fully achieve your goals at any time. But the reality is that that willpower, right, to do the work, that will to do the work is not limitless. It has a limit. Every
Mm-hmm.
single day that will has a limit.
Yeah.
And you must have that in mind when you want to, begin to practice deep work. Like you must know that every day there's a limit to how much of willpower that I would have to concentrate on my work. So what kind of strategies am I going to set in place to ensure that I don't draw out excessively from that willpower in a way that it exhausts me so much I am not able to get anything done? Because that happens.
Yeah.
And an example that was given in the book is, I mean, I'm jumping the gun now, but I think that is very important to bring this in, is when the author said something like, you can decide that you want to begin to concentrate on a particular learning, but the time that you decide to do it can be that deal breaker that draws significantly from your willpower. For instance,
Yeah.
I don't do well reading during the day. I prefer reading in the evenings or very, very early in the morning, like around 2 a.m., 3 a.m., up until like 6, 7 a.m. Like if you ask me to read maybe 12 p.m., like I'm my brain is not even gonna function. Now, if I say that that is the time that I will choose to do my deep work, it will require a significant amount of energy to bring myself to do that work at that time. I am drawing heavily from my finite willpower. And so the probability that I'm going to get anything done, if at all I'm able to get anything done, is very becomes much slimmer than if I adjusted the time to, a time that probably better
To suit
suits
your own
my own,
productivity.
yeah, suits my own productivity, my conditioning, my personality, and all of that.
Yeah,
So
the
that's
own
just
yeah.
the little caveat that we shouldn't
Well, I guess
take
at
off
the end
from
of
that
the day,
point.
we're going,
The
Yoruba will say
strategies
"Ibere
we put in
kolonishe."
place.
So
Yeah,
exactly, so you have to keep at it, because that is when you build the habit, and then you can, it turns into a continuous effort that you don't even necessarily have to force yourself to do it.
I
So
love your ideology. Like, don't beat yourself. It's not about you. It's not about you, really. It's not about you. It's not about your character. It's about the strategies that you put in place, to ensure
yeah,
that you actually do the work. I love that. So,
yeah.
can we now dive into the different approaches that the author suggests that we can, look at? Because again, he says that, different strokes for different folks, right? Different things are going to work for different people. But
Yeah,
it's just for us to look at all these different strategies that he is proposing based on what other
yeah.
people, based on what has worked for other people, and how you can even adapt it or adjust it to suit your own strategy
Style.
for concentration. Yeah, so
Exactly.
can we take a look at those approaches?
Yeah, so it says you need your own philosophy for integrating deep work into your professional life. And well, in my
Mm,
opinion, even your own personal life, because
yeah,
it's from the personal that the professional comes, right? And we
comes,
don't
yeah,
want to be defined by, our professional life. So why not just be an all-rounder? There's that
yeah,
to think about, at least for me anyway. So the types of philosophies that were discussed, there were about four in number: the
mm.
monastic, the bimodal, the rhythmic, and the journalistic
Is
philosophies.
that what? Sorry, I have a question for you. Is that what rhythmic or rhythmic? Is it rhythmic or rhythmic?
Rhythm. I know it's rhythm. I could make a quick Google search.
Don't worry.
Uh,
I'm just messing
I
with
mean,
you.
you really had to bring that up.
I'm just I'm just messing with you. I'm just messing with you.
Let me
It's
check
I
you.
mean
That's more of stressors and things like that.
semantics.
I'm not sure. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So yeah, the first one is the monastic philosophy. I call it the monastic approach because I choose to see it as a way that you can approach your a way that you can approach your concentration, a way that you can approach your work, like approach whatever it is that you're trying to achieve with your work. So I call it the approach. And I love that the reader also invites us to make our own contribution. So yeah, I'm gonna call it the approach. So yeah, the first one I have is the monastic approach. And I'd like to talk a bit about the monastic approach. So the book opened up by describing the life of a man who would go into the forest, into the woods when he needed to do a lot of research. He would separate himself from the rest of the world and he would just be alone,
Mm-hmm.
musing, meditating, studying, researching. And sometimes this can go on for months, months on end. And a lot of people actually practice this approach to studying. In fact, some people went as far as cutting out every form of communication. They
Yeah, they
stopped
did
using
that.
email, they stopped using social media, they just went off grid. And they only
Mm-hmm.
gave a very limited way to reach them. So I think this approach is a very extreme and perhaps unrealistic way for us to approach concentration and deep work in today's age. But what do you
Yeah,
think?
I sincerely, I was quite turned off when I did read that aspect. I'm like, calm down, now, it's not this deep.
They said deep
But
work.
you
Yes, it's
know,
this deep.
I mean, different strokes for different folks. I did read during the book, I would be honest, at the beginning of the book, where some guy learning how to code decided to go, off grid to avoid distraction. And then he actually read a book to code. And um, I won't lie, I decided to do the same since the distractions on YouTube were too many. And I actually can say that it's beginning to pay off. So, again, do what works for you. If
Yeah.
you are already, the hermit type, you don't really like talking to people, it may work for you. But I sometimes don't like to talk to people. I sincerely sometimes do hate checking my email, but I don't think I could really just raw dog it like that and just cut it all off like that. And it won't
Yeah.
work. It actually just won't work for me because that's not my type of person. But if that works for whoever it works for, it did
Yeah.
work for them. And there
And
was one
I
of,
think that even if we wanted to practice this approach, it could only work for a very short time. Because I remember I did something similar to this at the beginning of
yeah,
my transition. I
yeah,
remember
you
I did
did.
something similar to this where I,
You did.
where I
After
went
calling
off
us all,
grid.
I'm like, yeah, I'm getting off WhatsApp. I'm deleting my
I called you all
Instagram. I'm
out. I'm
like,
getting off WhatsApp. I'm getting off Instagram. I'm getting off every single social media. And I'm
I
going
had
to,
to calm down
immerse
now.
myself. Yeah. And I'm going to immerse myself in my work for 2 weeks. And it was a partial success.
I'm sure,
It was a
because you would be
partial success.
surprised that, with that initial grit and everything that comes with it, the excitement to try something new, you would find out that you will get a lot done. But in the long run, how effective is it, right? I think, like you did rightly point out, for short periods of time where you actually have to do a lot of, you have to
Good
do
work.
deep work, important work. Yeah, it can work, and that's fine. But doing that
But
for
in
a stretch
today's
of
world,
time,
perhaps only for a very short period of time.
I don't. I argue about being to today's world because some people, I'm sure, do this and it works
Mm.
for them. Point is, do what works for you. Do what works for
Do
your
what works for
situation.
you.
Because
So to just tidy that up, the monastic approach attempts people who practice this approach, they attempt to maximize deep efforts by eliminating shallow obligations. Now let's move on to the next approach, which is the bimodal approach. In this approach, the practitioners of this particular type of philosophy, they divide their time into two. One part is usually dedicated to clearly defined stretches of monastic style of deep work. That's the first one that we discussed. And the other
Mhm.
part of their time is left open to everything else.
Yeah,
So this is for those people who half of the time they would separate themselves and just be alone in the forest, in the bushes or wherever for maybe 2 months, and then for another 4 months they come out and they're in Las Vegas one minute, the next they're in Lagos, they're
I
everywhere.
mean,
Or
every
I think this one is more well, again, like you said, it's whatever works for you. But honestly, to be factual, I think this one is more it's more realistic, so to say. Like you can spend,
I
for
might
instance,
find
I
myself
did some two
lost
weeks.
in the enjoyment. So
Yeah,
I really don't know
honestly,
how this. Yeah,
honestly,
you point is,
honestly,
you have to, it's about finding, striking a balance, right? I think
striking a
that's what
balance. Yes,
this stands out towards
yes,
striking a balance. Because the example here, guys, like, yeah, I'm doing this for my own personal development. It's what I want to spend my life doing, but I've got
doing
bills to pay,
to
right?
pay.
So
Mm.
he's got a day job to pay the bills, and then he's got a night job to reach self actualization, that
Exactly.
place of
And the
self
bimodal approach,
actualization.
if you would allow me to say, is it's not it doesn't necessarily have to be done in terms of spending two months or 2 years out of sight and then 2 more years inside. No, it could be like you said, It could be stretches during the day. Like you know that 4 hours of your day is dedicated to deep work. In fact, some people wake up extra early just to get like 3 4 hours of work done, of deep work done, before they go into the rest of their day open to every other thing, communication, distraction, parties, and all of that. So it could be as like the bimodal approach could be as simple as how you structure your time. If you know
I
that you're an
think
early riser, you
you've
take
nested
advantage
it
of that
into
time.
the rhythmic approach because that's the
No,
rhythmic.
no, no.
That's
The
what
rhythmic
rhythm
the
talks
rhythmic
about.
approach just says that do it regularly. Do it regularly.
There's a
Let there be
part.
a due daily.
Let me see because there was a part that talked about
The
timing,
rhythmic,
and
the way I understood the
applied.
rhythmic approach,
Yeah.
it's like this book Atomic Habits that says that you need to do something for a significant amount of time regularly every day before it becomes a habit. I
Yeah.
That was how I understood the rhythmic approach differently from the bimodal approach. But what do you think?
Well, yes, you are spot on with that conclusion. Um, yeah, you are actually spot on with the conclusion. I don't really have much to add. I don't really think I have anything to add sincerely because that was the key to the rhythmic approach.
The
You
rhythmic
know,
approach.
it's it is like I said, the bimodal and the rhythmic go hand in hand. My bimodal, you set a time frame for what you want to do on off, like 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, however it is that best suits
You.
your life, right? So once you
Yeah.
figure that out, make sure that you are consistent, and that's the whole point of rhythm.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
where the example of the comedian came into place, the
Mm.
Seinfeld comedian, and I found it quite intriguing because it was like, okay, fine, you struggle with being able to dedicate time. So rather than doing it in your mind where you can easily fall into the loophole of skipping, not being um dedicated, or not keeping to your what you've made a promise to yourself to do, project it. Have a board whereby you have the days of the video, a calendar drawn out for the month, and then physically tick it off. So once you see that today you decide you do one day off, one day on, and then you see that you've already skipped 2 days, you've already skipped 3 days, you're going to be like upset with yourself typically. So you beat yourself up and then you tell yourself, okay, I'm going to, do better. So you start doing better and then you do better for like a week. And then you see, oh, nice. And then your brain tells you,
Your
girl, you
brain
see
just
that
falls
good
in love
feeling
with
you're
that thing.
having? Let's
Yeah.
keep it up.
It
And then
falls
you
in
see yourself take.
it falls in love with that streak. You know how there are some
Yes.
apps that would, keep streaks. Like every day you
Yeah,
enter the app, you
Duolingo,
just keep streak. And then
Duolingo stands out
the day
with
you
that.
break your streak, you're
And
like,
then Duolingo is like, girl, you're about to break your streak. You're about to break the
like
streak. And you're like, oh no. And then you rush back and then you start clicking just
exactly.
to make sure that you don't lose that streak.
Exactly. There's
So
there's
yeah,
there's a
that's
very
it.
diabolical addiction to streaks.
the the conversation you should be with your brain because it's your brain that is really tricking you to think that it's important. But yeah, you
Yeah.
get a certain sense of accomplishment when you do that, and that's what the rhythmic approach
Is
talks
all
about.
about.
Yeah.
And I think with that,
So till next
bye.
time,
Next
bye.
time.